Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Daniel Hendrick Experience. I'm really glad you're here with us today. Today we have an amazing tenor who has sung for the last 3 decades all over the world, from the Metropolitan Opera, San Francisco Opera. His name is Allan Glassman. And Allan has thrilled audiences throughout America and Europe for decades with his vibrant timbre and committed interpretations of roles. Critics have claimed his very presence on stage made those around him sound better. He's a regular at the Metropolitan Opera, and Mr. Glassman has triumphed as Herod in a production of Salome and has since been heard at the Metropolitan Opera and several other productions. But Allan is a very unique guy. He's got this really, really powerful kind of Verdian tenor voice, which has just been able to project and have power over those big orchestras. And so I'm super glad to have him here today to hear his perspective about singing and a career in the opera world. So without any further ado, we're just going to jump into it and talk to this amazing tenor, Mr. Allan Glassman. There he is.
Hey,
The legend himself is with us.
where, who, what?
How are you,
I've
brother?
survived. I'm a legend. I've survived. I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
Oh,
You
good,
sound
good.
good. Are you hearing me all right?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I have a huge speaker in here for my teach because I teach a bunch on Zoom. So,
Ah,
uh,
okay, excellent.
yeah, yeah. I need a microphone as good as yours, though.
There you go.
How are you? How are you, Daniel?
I am well. Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here.
Oh, I'm. It's funny. I scheduled a whole day today because my wife was supposed to be out of town. And I thought, oh, I'll teach today. I mean, and then she changed her mind last
Uh,
night, and I
uh-huh.
can't. I canceled all my lessons, and I said, you know what? I'm staying home with you, honey. I'm going to do this podcast and enjoy my day. Because
There you go.
I start school on Monday, so on next
Wow.
week. Yeah.
I can't believe all the low end I'm hearing in your speaking voice.
Oh yeah. It's dropped a lot. No, I
Oh,
don't talk. I don't
okay.
talk like Alfredo anymore. I try.
Hey, did you sing Faust and Mephistopheles at City Opera?
Yes, I did.
Do you
Well,
remember what
and you covered me.
I did? Yes, yes. Okay.
You covered me. Yeah, I did. Those were great years. They really were
Yes,
great years.
I remember
It's
that.
not my,
You did it with Steve West, right?
I did it with Steve West. Yeah, I did. And Delavan did. I did Delavan.
Yeah,
You got a new one.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mark and I
Mark.
did two performances of it
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Mark.
Um,
I love Mark.
yes, me too. He was the second or third guest on the show. I
I
loved it.
saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, yeah. But Mark and I have a lot of history going back, and still we've done a number of Otellos together, which has been great. And we got to perform this last year, did this crazy piece in Miami together, or an oratorio of all things. And it was a Jewish oratorio, so I kind of fit in. Um, but
Wow. Okay.
it was really neat. It was really neat. And it was great to perform with Mark again. So, so great.
Amazing. Amazing. Um, I just heard some of you singing Othello online, and I had
Mm-hmm.
never heard you sing that before. And I gotta tell you, in the intro, I introed you already, so we don't have to worry
Okay.
about that. But I
Okay.
referred to you as having a stentorian voice. And my God, I mean, usually with people with big voices don't have tops like you have, and your high notes were just not only big and ringing, but super, super free sounding. Did it feel free to you?
It did. That's funny. Of all the Otellos I did, that was a very interesting Otello. Um, it was Arizona Opera, and it was five in a week that they were doing, and I and with two casts because it was two
Okay.
in a row. It was two in a row: a Saturday night, a Sunday matinee, and then the following weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yes.
And I helped. I'm not going to say who. He's an old friend, and it was an old friend of mine, and who wanted to do the role, and I recommended him for doing the second cast, and he agreed, and
Yes.
it was his first one. And he had to pull out because he got something a little. He just couldn't do it,
Got it.
and then sometimes we do crazy stuff in our life, and my agent then said, "Come on, Alan, you can do it."
What an amazing story.
So I did. I had to, and the hardest part was the first weekend because I had to rehearse with both cast every day.
Mm-hmm.
I had a different Iago and a different Desdemona. So I was rehearsing, I don't know how many hours a day. And then the dress rehearsal for the second cast was the night before opening.
Oh my
So I
God.
basically sang Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then did. And I have a fun story about. I don't. I guess I can tell this.
You
Uh,
can.
so no, but honestly, the best performances were probably the last two because the first ones were. I mean, I was exhausted. I was just
Mm.
exhausted. So I got a few days off before the last two, and didn't have to rehearse anymore. And those probably went the best of the five that I had to do in a week. uh, Crazy, insane. But opening night was Saturday night, and then and we had the Sunday matinee the next morning. And we in Arizona. You do the first performance. I'm if you ever performed there in Tucson, and then the next weekend you're in Phoenix. And so after the performance, I thought I'm not even getting out of makeup. I'm going to my hotel. I just gotta. I want to get there and get in the shower and get to sleep so I can get up and do a matinee. And I'm in the car and I get pulled over by a policeman.
Oh my God. Okay.
And I have I have never done Othello with really dark makeup. I've just never
Okay.
done. Always been a lighter, color, much color. I just never wanted to do that. Uh, Even when the director asked me, I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going blackface. No.
Right. Right. I got you.
Uh, And so, but meanwhile, I had this darkened skin, and this policeman pulls me over, and I had no idea why. I didn't think I did anything
You
wrong.
hadn't been drinking heavily at the opera.
No, no, no. There was no party. There was no party. It was saying get to the hotel. Um, and he says license, and I said, well, it's a rental. Here's my license, and there's the rental thing. And he looks at me and he looks at my license. He goes, wait a minute. What's going on here? And I went, sir, I just did a performance down the street at the theater there, and I'm still in makeup because I'm doing a matinee tomorrow when I get home. He goes, I said, so what, officer? What did I do wrong? And he goes, you you changed lanes too quickly. Uh, and I said, did I have my signal light on? He goes, yeah, yeah, you had your signal light on. I said, well, what did what did I do wrong? He went, oh, no, no, you're fine. You just go. You just go. So he actually pulled me over because he thought I was not American. I was a Mexican.
Oh boy. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Okay. Wow.
That was
Well, I got to tell you. So, you sang Mephistopheles at City Opera. I was your cover, and I sang it with Mark.
and it
Well,
was great.
I also sang with Arizona Opera, and you're not going to believe what happened. I sang Lakme with Arizona Opera, which was kind of a mistake for me to sing Lakme in the first place. But
Hi.
guess what happened? The same
What?
thing that happened to you.
Oh no, it did not.
And I had to sing six Lakmes in a row.
Oh,
And I'm like, after the third one, I'm at the doctor's office with no voice.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the director's name back then, this fellow, but
It's David. It's probably David from
Rob.
Canada. David, who runs Hamilton Opera now, but I
Well,
knew him from Calgary.
so anyhow, I ended up getting the steroid injections and
Been there.
you know what I'm talking about,
Yes.
and barely made it through. But how funny that
Both had to do that. Yeah. Well, the next year I did Pagliacci there, and crazy me, I did all the performances, and those went fine though. It wasn't singing Otello, but Canio is hard, but it's not Otello.
well,
But
with
I did.
your voice is so unique. You have a ton of power and energy behind your sound. It's your vibrato is very intense, which I love that. And a lot of times with big voices, as you know, the vibrato slows down a bit, but not yours. Can
Yeah,
you
it's
tell us?
very Italianate. It's very Italian. I sing very Italianate, and I teach the same.
Yes,
Um, I've always thought of myself sort of a freak. And Daniel, I don't even did you knew I changed from baritone to tenor, right?
I did know that. Yes,
And I did it at the Met. I made my debut at the Met as a baritone.
that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm singing baritone roles one season, and then the next season I'm starting to sing tenor roles. And
Wow.
I'm one of the few that have actually done that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Carlo Bergonzi, right? Yeah, maybe not at the
Bergonzi did
Met.
it. But
Yeah.
but doing it at the Met, I had a student ask me the other day, weren't you nervous? I went, do you know, I didn't have the time to get nervous. I had so much work to do, and I just worked really hard.
And
But
how did that
I still
happen?
wanted to change. Well, I had always fiddled with it and thought about it because people had been telling me since I was 19, since I made my debut at 19 in opera, and they've been
Mm.
telling me since I was 19 that I was a tenor. But meanwhile, I'm having a really nice career as a baritone, and I thought, and then I get in the Met as a baritone.
Amazing.
My debut role was Chonard in La Boheme,
Bohem. Mm-hmm.
and I just I loved being a baritone, but I knew I had this extreme top. I always had a very, very easy top. And I'll say his name. I was doing a Carmen in Washington Opera, and I made very good friends with a guy named David Bankston. I don't think you probably know David. Wonderful tenor.
Okay.
And David and I became great, great friends. And he was in New York as I was, and he goes, Allan, listen, I know you're a tenor. I know it. Could you do me a huge favor? Will you sing for my teacher? And I said, sure. He says, you don't have to, just sing for him and see what he says. Could you do that for me? And I did. And his name is Richard Barrett. And Richard goes, Allan, he's from Texas. Allan, I'm telling you now, you'll be one of the greatest tenors of all time. I'm telling you. And I went, oh, okay, okay. He says, I want you to do me a favor. We're not going to, I want you to work with me. We don't have to tell anybody. You can keep singing, do your stuff at the Met. But we're not going to tell anyone. You're just going to work with me and see how it goes. And so we started working to be a tenor. Didn't tell anybody.
Mm.
David Bankston knew him, and Richard. That was it. And we learned all. I mean, he really taught me so much, and actually became a better singer. I had a lot of tongue tension as a baritone because I was trying to make a darker sound,
Okay.
which is a very typical thing for a lower voice to do. And now, after working with all these voices that I've been doing for the last 20 years now,
Yes.
uh, when a lower voice wants to make that darker sound, they tend to get the tongue usually pulls back or it goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And he got rid of all this tongue tension that I had and just opened up my sound and really got me singing really lyrically even more lyrically than I was. And
Mm.
I learned all these arias, well, a lot with high C's. And
Amazing.
uh, I never told you this story. I'm sorry. Is it okay to tell this whole story? I don't
Oh, I'm
want
I'm totally enamored with this. I'm
to.
loving it.
Okay. So I've told this to a lot of people. Uh, so the guy who handled the young artists, most of the young artists, and he also ran the young artist program, was a guy named Larry Stair at the Met. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you remember him.
No.
And Larry, I went to Larry. He said, "Alan, I want you to come in. We're going to offer you a new contract for next year." And it was all these great lyric baritone roles. I mean, leading roles too. And
Wow.
I said,
Okay.
"Okay, Larry, I haven't told you this, but I've been working on something, and I've been working on being a tenor." And he goes, "Wow." He didn't get upset. He went, "Well, let's make a time to come sing for me." So I said, "Great, and we'll do it in List Hall. List Hall is the where the
Yeah.
chorus is."
Yep. Yep.
And so I'm okay, well, and I'm already. I've learned. Oh, I probably had good 10 arias, but I brought my five in, and
Okay.
three with high C's,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
and I get to the door, and here's Larry, and he goes, "Alan, please don't be mad at me. I told Jimmy, and he's coming."
Okay, folks, for those who don't know who he's
James
talking about
Levine.
James Levine. Okay.
And
No pressure though. Don't get nervous.
well, the good thing was I didn't have time to get nervous because I didn't
Okay.
know he was coming.
Okay.
And Maestro comes in. He goes, "I, just kind of."
Yeah.
And he doesn't sit. You ever do auditions? You ever do any auditions in List Hall? You probably did at
I
some point.
did. Yes, I did.
So usually they'll sit up at the top or even in the middle when they listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
No, he came and he sat right in front of me in the first row,
Whoa. Okay.
right in
Intimate.
front of me, with
Okay.
his arms folded, with his arms folded, and he went, "Okay, Alan." I could tell he was not
A
in
believer.
that
Mhm.
happy about this. And I sang one aria after another, sang five arias.
Do you remember what you opened with?
Um, I think it was Bohème. I think I did Kejelida.
Okay.
Um, but I did the I did the William Tell aria with the high C's.
Oh my God. Okay.
Sang Faust. Uh,
Wow.
and I can't remember the other two, maybe Pinkerton. And there was no expression on his face. He just kept shaking his head like from one side and going,
Can't
just,
believe it.
just shaking his head. And I finished the last aria, and he goes, "Alan, I'm going to be honest with you." And I thought, "Oh God, here it comes." "I came here to tell you you're out of your mind because I love
Mm-hmm.
your bits. I love,
Mm-hmm.
it." And I said, "Oh boy." I says, "But I got to tell you something. You've changed my mind. It's incredible what you've done.
Amazing. Yes.
Um, and we're going to take care of you. And we're going to put you in the young artist program at 31.
Wow.
At 31. I'm changing to a tenor at 31.
Right.
He says, "We're going to put you in the young artist program. We're going to take care of you. We're going to coach you. We're going to pay for your lessons. We're going to do everything to help you."
Jeez. Not
I mean,
bad.
my mouth was like, no, I just felt very lucky,
Yeah,
as I
James
always.
Levine on your side now. That's pretty good.
And so I was in the young artist program for 3 years, but I immediately was doing roles the next season. That season, I was doing, some, nice, nothing, not too small. I think Edmondo Emanuelesco was my debut, and then I did Tenor,
Okay.
but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so Gastone, things that
Yeah.
wouldn't
Tax you too much.
tax me too much. But meanwhile, I was working on leading roles also with the coaches there. Thank God I had Nico Costello. I mean, I tell my students that because they know from his books who Nico Costello is.
Sure. Sure.
And how lucky I was to have Nico help me do this transition.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm.
but it's still been a crazy ride for me. And now I have this range. Now it's I still have the top, but now I've got good low Fs on the
Yeah.
bottom.
And that's, I was telling you before we
That
started, I
that's
can
why
hear
my
it.
voice sounds so low, especially it's morning still. But for
Right.
me, and it's it's just changed so much for me. Now I work with basses and I'm teaching them how to sing low notes, teaching basses how to sing low. They're going and they're looking at me, how do you do that? And I said, I'm going to show you how.
Wow.
I'm going to show you how I do that and how you can make it easier.
That's
Uh, and
amazing.
so it's nice to have that range that I could work with either voice now. And
That's
it's
fantastic. Yeah. Um, let's just pause a moment here,
okay.
sort of off camera. I downloaded from your website the Que la mi creda.
Good.
Is that okay if I play it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That was
So
just
then
a couple of years ago, so it
yeah,
was
I'm just
great.
gonna. I noticed that, and still and especially, well, I'm gonna talk about it afterwards because
Okay.
I'm a tenor. I have observations.
No, I,
All right, brother, hold on. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So we are going to hear a little bit of the stentorian voice that I was talking about. And I just want you to check out how flawlessly Allan ascends the through the passaggio up to these high B flats on this aria from Girl of the Golden West called Che la mi creda.
that
Yeah,
was
just listen to that.
that was a very interesting concert I did. Uh, I think I was the only American in the whole, except for the pianist playing. We were the only Americans in the whole theater. This was done at this beautiful new concert hall at DePaul University, and
Mm,
it was for a Chinese organization that
okay.
brought in three of these one incredible Chinese tenors from
Mm,
China, and they asked, and the friend of mine, who's also a friend of mine and student of mine, who is also a teacher in China with a gorgeous tenor voice, he asked me to be on this concert, and
mm.
and they just it was so. strange. I sang like three things, and they just went crazy they didn't go as crazy for their own singers as they did for me. I thought, wait a minute, what do I have that they don't?
Yes.
They had
Well,
gorgeous voices. They really.
well, that I could tell you what you have for
You
being
know what?
it's
It's and you have that. You have it too, Daniel. That's squealo. It's that squealo, and it's
mm,
that vibration. It's the vibrations that make people feel. That's what makes people feel something, you
mm-hmm.
know. And you don't always get that from a Wagnerian singer because with a Wagnerian singer, although except for I was listening to Ben Hepner the other day sing some
Oh,
sing some Tosti songs, and
I, I was just listening to those too. Yes, and I talked to him about those.
I mean, really, he's one of the great spinto tenors of our time.
Yes,
He was a
yes,
Wagnerian. I mean, that voice is just,
yeah,
and his turandot was gorgeous, also.
yes,
So that's how I got to do this concert with these. It was so wonderful to have this. It was all only Chinese people in the audience, and we have
amazing.
in Chicago. There's a huge Chinese. We have the big Chinatown down, but
Uh-huh.
there's a lot. Uh, but they have some amazing. I just finished working at. I teach in the summers at a program called Chicago Summer Opera, and we got so many singers. There's two sessions. We had 75 on the first session and 75 on the second session. Yeah,
Amazing.
and but a lot of Asians and just with amazing voices.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
just crazy, just crazy.
Yes. There seems to be this almost like a genetic resonance that's very
Yeah,
round and rich with
yeah, yeah.
those
It
voices.
really is. Yeah, we just did Carmen, so I worked with both the Joses, and one was Spanish and one was Asian, and very different, but just gorgeous, both of them. You know,
Interesting.
I
Uh,
love working with singers. I just love
yeah.
doing this now.
Can I ask you
Yeah,
a technical question
sure, please.
about the way you sang this? Because you came from a baritone to a tenor, but
Mm.
you're singing the Fs in Que la mi creda really kind of open as
Yeah.
opposed to a lot of even tenors are going to be closing those notes. And that's the way I used to like to do it, but you do it so easy. How in the
Well,
heck did that happen?
well, Daniel, I learned that way, honestly, especially changing from baritone to tenor. I kind of had to. Now, on a closed vowel,
Mhm. That's
I'll turn
different.
those F's on a closed vowel.
Right.
But an open vowel, I sing those F's open, and
Yeah.
but I don't sing them wide. So
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
the difference. I don't go wide. I sing them vertical, so that
Yes.
the soft. I'm talking technically, but the soft palate is going to stay up higher when you sing vertically. So
Yes.
it's not going to sound that sound. It's still going to sound,
Exactly.
and so it keeps it in line with the top and the bottom. Then, and it's something I really teach and just watch. How lucky were we, Daniel, see and hear some of the greatest singers of all time.
Yes.
Um, and to be able to look at Pavarotti,
Mhm.
to sit there. I covered him in two different roles, and
Mm.
and to sit there and watch him
Mhm.
and okay, how does he produce that sound? Because if they can't always tell you what they do. It's very hard, especially with a language
Yes.
difference. But if you watch them now, and even now with
There you go.
videos, the videos where I show these kids all the time the videos of the great singers, and not just tenors, any singer. And I
Mhm.
say, you guys need to watch. You need to watch and because and see how do they produce that sound. And that helped me.
Mm.
I worked with Alfredo Kraus a bunch, and Alfredo couldn't.
Mm.
I always like he goes, Alan, you'll put it here, huh? Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Easy
that's
to
all it
say.
Yeah, Alan, his B flat, some of the greatest B flats I ever heard. I mean,
Yes.
and I'd sit there going, I said, Alfredo, how do you do that? And he goes,
Right.
I tell you someday, I tell you.
Hmm.
But he couldn't.
Well,
He really couldn't. He couldn't do it. He couldn't really say how he did it.
Maybe
He
you can
couldn't.
help since you sang with Pavarotti and you've heard him up close. Maybe you can
Yeah.
answer this question for me. I was at the Met in the cafeteria and I had an audition with Giancarlo Delmonico,
Come on. Oh,
right?
French.
Uh,
Yeah.
so anyhow, at that time they were rehearsing Tosca. So I snuck
Yes.
into the theater and I'm in the back. No one's in the theater. I'm not supposed to be there. And it's a dress rehearsal and Pavarotti walks on stage and I'm like, he's not going to sing it, right? He's going to mark it or whatever. But he starts to sing it. Now this is what happened to me. It sounded like he was right in front of me, but all the other voices sounded, they were big, but they were over there on the stage.
Yeah.
Do, do,
And I tell this all the time. He was one of the loudest voices I ever heard at the Met. His
that's what I'm
voice,
asking.
his voice, and the reasoning. And I've been lucky enough to have been told this too about myself about how
Yes.
loud I was at the Met. I never pushed, and I watched him. He never pushed. What happens with a lot of singers when they sing at the Met is they look out and they look over that orchestra, which is huge,
Mm-hmm.
and they think, I've got to make more sound.
Mm.
And they start pushing. So when you push, your voice hits a wall and it stops spinning. His voice never stopped spinning. And that's what made him loud. And that's what I learned from him, especially.
Mm.
Never feel like you have to push, because if you push, the spinning stops.
Uh-huh.
It's going to sound loud to us, but not
Yes.
out. Because
Yeah.
how many students have said to me, all right, I can't, and they listen. And you always hear teachers saying, stop listening to yourself. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that, because I say, no, you're going to listen to yourself. It's what you're listening for. And when you're singing right, you're not going to hear it that well, because it's
Yes.
going to be going straight out like a laser beam.
Mm-hmm.
And but Luciano's voice, I tell you, it really sounded like there were people in my years. There were 30 years to Met. There were people who were enhanced. I won't say who. He was
Mm.
not.
You
He
mean
did not have to be.
you mean they used
They
microphones?
used floor mics. They used floor mics. Yeah, we called it
Oh.
enhancing.
Uh, you know, I don't know if you know Alan Hill, but
Yeah, sure. Alan's a good friend. Yeah, of course I know
oh,
Alan. Yeah,
okay. So he talked about having to sing over the big orchestras like that too, and he talked about just becoming one with the orchestra and not trying to
that's
push over
exactly
them.
right. If you do that, that's when because sometimes we rehearse downstairs, and these nice and they're very good acoustical rooms downstairs,
Mm-hmm.
uh, big, and then people were fine, and then they get up there and they start, especially if they hadn't sung there before.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, speaking of bad places to sing, our city opera years, please.
Oh
And that,
my.
but you had to get used to that. You had to go, okay, I know I can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
So you start pushing there.
Yes.
You were not heard. You were
Yes.
not heard. But because there was no sound coming back in the State Theater,
Mm-hmm.
that start thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to give. And that's the tendency to do when we're in a hall that is dead. We
Yes.
feel like we have to give more. We immediately think, oh, I've got to give more because I'm not hearing anything.
Yes.
And that's when the sound stops. And that's when it
Mm-hmm.
stops. And it's a shame there. But you probably found there were spots on the city up on the State Theater
I cheated.
where
Yes.
there were spots. I knew down. I was doing Hoffman there. But were you there when I did the Hoffman? I'm not sure.
I don't
But
think so.
the Hoffman, and we were doing a 4 hour version of Hoffman, and all
Oh,
this extra
Jesus.
music. And it was Delavan and I do it. And
Okay.
and I knew by then where the places were, but I always made myself get downstage right or downstage left. There were two spots that I knew where they were, and I get my voice start spinning.
Mm-hmm.
Not worry about it. But it was hard to find if you didn't know about those.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was not built for opera. That was what it came.
Definitely not. So,
No.
what in your experience over the years was like your best opera house for acoustic?
Oh, I always talk about. Well, the Met was pretty damn good. I won't lie to you.
Hmm.
Uh, for a house that's almost 4,000 seats, and to have that sound coming back to you, if you sang right, it came back to you, and you heard it, and you had no problem singing there. If you pushed, that's when you were in trouble at the Met. You know, it's funny. I finally got to make my debut a few years ago at the Lyric Opera here in Chicago, and
Mm.
everybody was like, "Oh, it's not the greatest acoustically." I had no problem hearing that sound coming back. So I think again, it's a 3,000 seat house. I
Hmm.
think people get nervous and they start pushing because they
Don't,
think I've got
don't you think it too? It depends upon the particular instrument. In some houses, one
I
voice
do.
is.
I do. I absolutely do. But I also believe that if you have the right kind of technique,
Hmm.
and you're going to rehearse on this, say, most of the time, I'm many times I've had to go on covering. Uh,
Hmm.
but again, I knew the theater. But the one of the greatest, this is a very funny thing because one of the greatest theaters I've ever sung in, is, you'll be surprised when I tell you this, is in Omaha, Nebraska.
Wow. Okay.
Omaha. They have acoustic. This theater was an old movie theater that they converted long time ago.
Hmm.
I think they're still using the same theater, and it was. I was shocked, and of course Carnegie was, but
Yes.
the two new opera houses in Dallas and Fort Worth. I don't know if you got a chance to sing there at all.
Neither
Uh,
of those.
Fantastic.
Mm.
The guy who did the acoustics for both theaters there emulated Carnegie Hall.
Okay.
So you'd get out there and you went, oh wow, yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
both theaters. I was lucky enough to sing both. I opened up, actually did the opening for both. I did Otello in Dallas and Bohème. Can't believe I still did Bohème. Then Bohème to open the new house in Fort Worth, which is
Those are
gorgeous.
those are kind of opposite roles, but
Yeah, I didn't. It was very funny because I did. They had come. I had done a bunch of stuff at Fort Worth, and they said, "We really want you there for the opening." And I said, "Because they love you here." And I said, "Well, that's very sweet." I said, "Why don't you get a nice lyric tenor to sing?" I said, "I'm not really singing Bohème anymore." I said,
hmm.
and they went, "Oh no, no, Alan, please, come on. They look.
You.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine." I said, "You have to get." I said, "You have to get a big voice, me." We had. I knew who the Marcello was Louis Odi, and Louis was great. You probably know Louis, and
Yes.
and Louis was great. So I said, but I got to have a big voice, me, and they did not. And you got a beautiful voice, the girl that was singing it, but
Small
I,
voice.
it was just, and I'm trying to hold back, and
Yes.
it was fine. It went fine, but I was the last poem I did. I said, okay, I'm done.
I understand. Yeah, there are
It's hard to
challenges.
switch. And it's so funny, Daniel, because they just think you can switch. All these people think, well, can't you just sing this and then sing that? I mean, how many
Yeah.
concerts I've done, opera concerts, where they want you to sing? I was one I'm thinking of now that it was all Verdi and with a big voice soprano. Thank goodness that I was a very famous soprano. And we opened with Otello, and then we switched to Traviata,
Mm.
and then they
Okay.
and then they wanted Di Quella Pira after that.
Oh
You know,
Jesus.
after, you know, and I'm like, guys, you're killing me. And
Yeah.
the bad thing is I didn't say no. That's the bad thing. I did it.
Mm. Well, that's the mistake I made with the Lockme thing. I was singing all of
Oh,
these arias and auditions with high
so
C's,
lyric. It's so
and
lyrical.
and it was not for me.
Yeah.
That was the biggest mistake. And then I repeated it in New Orleans opera, and that was a disaster. But then,
Oh, we all make, but we've all done things like that, Daniel. We've done
mhm.
them, and
Tell
you
me
don't.
about some. Tell me.
Let's see how many. How you have another hour? No, I mean, I even with heavier roles, because
Hmm.
early on as a tenor, I got asked to do Bacchus. It was Atlanta,
Mm,
Atlanta, and it went okay. It went okay, but I wasn't ready for Bacchus yet. I
gotcha.
was at the time still singing more lyrical, Faust and
Hmm.
Lucia, things like that. I wasn't ready for Bacchus yet. And I was smart enough to myself to say, all right, I'm putting this away. I'm not going to sing this again. And I did do a lot of them later. I did.
Okay.
Because again, it was because they thought, because I was they, especially the people that knew me, the guy who ran Atlanta knew me as a baritone. And so he thought, oh, it'll have that great, darker sound. And
Yes.
but, it's a real shame. And this happened to me also vocally. Um, because I can make a darker sound.
Yes.
There were people who kept going, oh, make it darker, make it darker, make it darker,
Don't you
and
love that?
and me, I'm going, okay, I'll try that. And you can't.
Hmm.
And it's something that, and I know you sing this and sing the same way, even though I have a stentorian sound,
Hmm.
I don't think dark. I think lyrically all the time, no
Hmm.
matter what, and especially singing those F's like that.
Hmm.
If I would turn those F's too much, that's when you get in trouble. But
Yes.
but Daniel, every voice is different.
Yes.
Every voice, and there are some
Hmm.
people that I was just working with a tenor yesterday, and we were working it out because I never say you have to sing this way or this way. I have
Good.
to find out what works for them,
Them. Exactly. What's the
not what
nature of
works
their
for
instrument?
not what works for me, because
Hmm.
that's not they're a different voice. Every voice is different.
Yes.
And you have to find out what's going to be best for them. And
Yes.
it's hard. And it's hard because they want to I demonstrate a bunch and then they want to sound like me and I'm like, no, no, no. That's not
Right.
I'm demonstrating to show you how to relax and let your jaw go because so many just sing with such a tight jaw.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't open my mouth very much, but I have to, show how to do that. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
I'm
As,
loving it. This is an education. So,
as
speaking of what you're talking about, individuals, early in my career, in my early 20s, DeStefano became my teacher and coach. And
I didn't know that. Are you
yes,
kidding?
no,
You
I'm not.
with the Stefan? Oh
Yes,
my
sir.
God, Steph. Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's
And
very
so,
interesting.
so
Very
I'm
interesting.
talking about opening those F's, right?
Well, he sang wide open.
He did. And in the early days, it really worked for him. Well, he taught me how to do that too. But I was there when he was trying to teach other tenors to do it, and and that goes back to your point. You have to look at the individual instrument. And there are times when that F is open, and there are times when you definitely have to close
At
it.
the turn. Oh, you got to turn.
Where,
Yeah.
as opposed to Pavarotti, who told DeStefano, "No, you sing too open." And DeStefano was Pavarotti's idol, and so Pavarotti says, "No, you have to close those Fs," which he was a master of closing those
Yes,
Fs
he was. He
without paying
was.
a price going up. It just freed him.
Yep. And the thing is, we talked about singing this vertical, and if you watch, I always called Luciano's technique the smile technique because he loved doing that smile.
Mm-hmm.
And but what he did was he brought it down because people think, well, he didn't do this.
Right. Yeah.
He went
Mm-hmm. You had
and he
both.
brought it down. He had both. He
Yes.
had both,
Mm-hmm.
so that he could keep. But when he would turn his Fs, it was just slightly. It wasn't like this big cover.
It was
That's
not a
why I never
cover.
say.
Yeah.
That's why I don't say the word cover. I hate the word cover because people think this.
So do you say
So
close?
I say turn. I say turn,
Turn. Turn. Okay.
turn, because I want people just to go. I don't want to think they have to go like this and
Mm.
turn it all the way. I want
Right.
it slightly turned. Uh, and that's what he did. But again, what worked because I play his una furtiva a lot for the young tenors,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't turn because that was one of the first arias I learned, and that's how I learned how to be a tenor.
Amazing.
was by working on that aria, because there's so much of this of open turn,
Mm-hmm.
open
Mm-hmm.
turn. That's what makes it hard. But once you get that, you can sing anything. Now
Yes.
he turned more F's on that than I do,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but that worked for him.
Exactly. Exactly. You
And
know,
I had a
another
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
another master of that equation was Geely. He could turn it, and then on the note he could open it or turn it. I mean, what a freaking
He was a
master.
master. He was a master. He
And
really
that
was.
enabled him to do heavier roles than perhaps his
He
voice
sang
was.
everything. He
Yeah.
sang everything. But Björling was the same. Look what
Mm-hmm.
Björling.
Yes.
Björling was basically a lyric tenor, but he sang all the heavier stuff too, because he had just that even up and down for him that just worked for him. And but that for his voice,
Right.
for his voice,
You know,
you
usually
know,
we don't talk about like pop singers and stuff, but one just passed away at 90 something who was
Tony.
Tony. Tony was a master of that turn, and he could open
And he's a
it.
tenor, and he was
And
a
he's,
tenor.
yes. And, but yet he could still sing the lower than most of the other crooners, but he could
That's
go,
why he could sing forever. And that's what
yes,
I really emphasize now is about, do you want to sing for a few years, or do you
yes,
want to sing forever? And
exactly.
and uh and that's what I've learned so much about being a better singer by being a teacher. And it's helped
Yes.
me become a better singer,
I love
honestly.
it. Love it.
Uh and I'm still singing, and
It's
it's
amazing.
very honored that I
And
can
you still
still.
sound youthful.
That's what I'm trying for. I have a deal with my wife. I said, if she ever hears a wobble, I'm done. you got to you got to tell me. You got to
There you,
tell me. Real wobble,
there.
I'm stopping. I am not going to sing anymore. Uh,
Yes.
but because so many singers that I've worked with, especially and more now in the women that try to get into the heavier stuff, who have glorious lyric voices,
Mm.
and they try to sing. I'm not saying any names, but someone, because great friends, and they tried to do these heavier things, and all of a sudden they have a wobble.
Yes. Yep.
They have.
Well, I've interviewed people who have told me that that happened to them, and that's pretty much what ended their career.
Yeah.
But I won't mention any names.
No, no, no. But you have to know, I think, and you have to be honest with yourself. Now,
Yes.
I'm also honest with myself. I'm not getting that much work anymore. I'm 70 years old now, which
Oh my
isn't old.
God, you're looking
But
great, brother.
oh, thanks. But I know there's, at my age, they're not going to be hire me that much. And people know how long I've been. This is my 51st year singing the upper
Amazing. And for a tenor,
54th.
wow,
Uh,
that's
uh,
amazing.
but it isn't easy. We have to work at it all the time. The great Jerome Hines, who I was
Oh,
fortunate to sing with a few times at the end, towards the end there. And I said to him, I said, Jerome, I said, how Jerry, they call him Jerry.
Jerry.
How
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
stop?
Jerry.
It was like 77 or something that we were doing Boris excerpts in Cleveland.
Wow.
And I said, how are you sound so youthful. And he went,
Yep.
Allan, every day I learn something new. And that's how I keep singing. I'm still working at it, Allan. I went, well,
Yes.
you're right. And he's right,
He
because
was.
we don't stop. And your body
Amen.
changes. Your
Your
body changes all the time. And I have to tell these
yes.
kids all the time, is that your voice is going to change with age. It
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
without manipulating it, without, doing, and sometimes people's voices don't change. Also, sometimes they
Yeah.
say just one.
Usually the exception to the rule, but yeah, it
But
does happen.
especially with lower voices, Daniel, because I've worked with so many people, they try so hard to manufacture a darker sound, and They're so afraid to be lyrical,
Yes.
so afraid.
Yep.
Because they're afraid, especially with the baritones. I think, oh, they're going to tell me I'm a tenor if I sing too lyrically. I said,
Yes.
no, they're not going to tell you. No, not if you sing round. I use the word round.
Mm-hmm.
Not. I said, we're
Yes.
not. You're not going to lose the roundness. I
Mm-hmm.
said, but if you try to sing back, first of all, we're not going to hear you.
Right.
You know, it's going to
And
sound great to your ear, but it's not to us out here, out in
hey,
the
they
audience.
said Leonard Warren was a tenor, so maybe so what if they say that about you anyway? It was
But
still
and again,
glorious.
Leonard Warren, one of my all-time favorite baritones, uh, had one of the most interesting voices I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was not a tenor. Uh, he just had a unique voice, and it was amazing. It was
Yes.
amazing. Yes, he had an easy top,
Mm-hmm.
but as 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 I tell many baritones who have come to me who thought about changing to a tenor,
Ah, okay.
where are you comfortable singing to? I mean, how high have you gone? Well, he said, I can sing a G, a good G. I said, why would you want to be a tenor then? Well, somebody, because they tell me I sound like a tenor. I,
Mm.
I said, well, I said, I'll work with them a little while and say, no. I said, this is my opinion, of course. I said, you don't have the top. Do you really want to work that hard? That's
Exactly.
what my old teacher, who I loved before Richard Barrett, uh, was a wonderful man named William Metcalf, and I think about him every day. Um, and when I decided to change the tenor, his first thing is this: why would you want to work that hard? You're doing
Yes.
so well as a baritone.
Yes.
And I said, because it's right. It's
Mm-hmm.
right. It works. It just works.
Yeah.
And
It's like a knowingness.
is it
You
hard? Is it hard to be a tenor? As you know, it's incredibly hard to be a tenor.
Yes.
Incredibly hard, especially if you're not feeling your best,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, I can't, I very fortunate not to have to cancel very many times in my career. Uh, and sometimes I probably should have,
Mm.
but even when I was not feeling my best, once I got my technique solid,
Rolling. Uh-huh.
and that took a long time, by the way,
Mm.
took a long time because
Mm-hmm.
hard. I mean, doing that switch was very, and then had so many people who were very kind telling me how to sing. Say, no, sing this way, sing that way, sing, because they knew I
Exactly.
was making that switch, and they're all like, no, no, you should sing, not, no, that's not right, think this way or that way. Even the
Mm-hmm.
Met play with that,
Amazing.
saying, we're not sure we like what your teacher's doing with you, and
Ooh.
and then I'd go, all right, let me work on it, and then I'd come back and sing for them. Oh, that's much better. That's much better. Of course, I didn't change a thing, so
I didn't want to put those words in your mouth, but I knew that's where you were
that's all
going.
right. I don't think I'll be back to the Met anymore, so we're fine. They can't do
That's
anything to me now.
that's the funny thing, and I talk to my students about this a lot. I say, I would go to one audition, and they would say, "Oh, we have an Otello coming up." I would go to another audition, and they would say, "Oh, we have a Don Giovanni coming up." And I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with this world that some people hear you that way? And
It's Oh no, I think yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Because
yes.
oh no, no, I was telling this story. I can't think of famous conductor's name who used to be music director before Conlon at L.A. Opera, a
Mm-hmm.
Japanese conductor. We were doing. I was doubled with Domingo on
Wow.
Idomeneo,
Wow. In
and
LA.
so I had this was a long time ago, and I had my performance, he had his, but I did all, of course, when I don't know if you ever covered Domingo, but he never rehearses, so you do all the rehearsals
Okay.
with the cast, which was great. I'd never done Idomeneo, so it was,
Sure.
really top class cast. And my first night, I do the first act, felt pretty good, and the conductor knocks on my door, and he comes, he says, Allan. I said, yes. I have to tell you something. You're one of the greatest Mozart tenors I've ever heard. He says, here's what, here, this is after one act. He goes, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come to Vienna with me and work with my coach. I'm telling you, we can make you one of the greatest Mozart tenors.
Oh my
And I,
God.
and I said, you know, it's very kind of you. I don't think I'm really a Mozart tenor. He's like, no, but you sound so amazing. This. I said, well, I'm singing this lyrically because it's Di Domeneo. I'm not
Right.
going to sing this with the same sound.
As
And I said,
Othello.
as well, I reminded him of the last opera we did together. And I said, you know, do you remember that I sang Bacchus with you? And he goes, oh, yeah, you did. And that was really good. And I went, yeah, that's a very different sound than this. I have to move my voice in this. This is
Mm,
coloratura. You have to move, which, you know, I just learned how to sing
to
and
do
how
that.
to wherever the aria lies. You know, I'm, for instance, the Che la mi creda. I'm not going to sing Canio the same way I sing
Exactly.
Che la mi creda. You know, it's a little rounder sound. It's still lyrical. You got to keep it lyrical, but it's a different sound,
Hmm.
and and you have to adjust to that. But
It's
it's amazing
amazing.
telling you that, oh no, you and because people don't know.
They
They
don't
don't.
know. And that's what I teach my students. Look, you have to get a grasp of who you are
Yeah.
because you're going to have all of these voices. And sometimes there's pressure situations and they want you to do something. And if you just sell out to get the gig or something, you can make the mistake I did with Lakme and then regret it later. But hold on to what
You
you
know,
know you are.
it happened to me at the Met once. I was they were doing Lulu. It was Levine's favorite opera. He loved that
Mm,
opera. It's not one of my favorites, but he loves that opera. I
wow.
love Wozzeck because I've done Wozzeck and I love Wozzeck. But Lulu, I never really loved. But I had stepped in for a broadcast of Electra, and to do with him. And he came to me. He says, Alan, we're doing Lulu next year. And I want you, I want you to cover the lead role, the lead tenor role.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm adding a performance for you. I want you to do a performance of it. But then I didn't really remember the tenor role because I knew it from my baritone days,
Ah,
actually.
okay.
And I didn't remember the tenor role. So I took a look at it and I went, God, this is very lyrical.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the people who had done it and I went, this is not. But because it was Jim, I thought, okay, I'll learn it. And so we were in rehearsals and I had a friend of mine came up to, we're in rehearsals and he came up to me and he goes, and he was a bass. And he goes, Alan, I just have a question for you. What were you thinking when you said yes to doing this role? And not only that, but also stepping in for one performance with hardly any rehearsals in a
Mm,
very, very difficult opera.
mm-hmm.
Very difficult. And I knew it,
Amazing.
but that wasn't the problem. It was just, we're
Yeah.
talking really hard. And
And,
I thought of what he said to me, and I went to one of the artistic staff who remember Lenore Rosenberg, and I said, Lenore, I want you to do me a favor. I'd like to be taken off this because I've worked on it, I know it, but it's not right for me.
mm-hmm.
It really is. And I'm sorry, Jim, wanted me to do this, but it's not right for me. It really isn't. And she went, oh, that's no problem. And she was very kind about it. It didn't hurt me there. Uh,
Excellent. Well,
to
good for
work there.
you. Yeah. You made the
But
right
it was
call.
hard to do that. It was hard to do
Uh,
that because I
yeah.
know that he
Yeah.
really wanted me to do it. But even Levine, sometimes you go,
Sure.
it's not always right. You have to know if it's right
Eh,
for you. And it's hard because you're right to say no to it. to a leading role, singing with
Yes, at the
and
Met.
and the
Right.
Levine's asking you to do it. You're like,
Yes.
oh, okay, all right. But
Got it.
yeah, I should have said as soon as I worked on it, I should have said no. But I was,
Hmm. You were trying.
and they brought a guy in from Germany who'd done it, and I was very happy to be off of that,
Good.
and gave all my Lulu music away. I said, "Who wants Lulu?
Who wants
I'm
it?
never going to do this opera again."
Yeah, get behind me, Lulu. Hey, so growing up, did you have a tenor that like captivated you or was like your inspiration?
Oh, it was you got to remember, it was a baritone. So of course, when I was a baritone, Robert Merrill was because
Ooh,
of
that's
us
pretty good.
both being Jewish and from Brooklyn, I was
There you
Robert
go.
Merrill.
Okay.
It's funny. We had Tucker, also Brooklyn Jew.
That's what I was
Um,
going to ask.
but
Yeah.
but Tucker, people used to tell me I sounded like Tucker. I didn't think I sounded like Tucker. I love Tucker,
I don't think you sound like him, but there are similarities in
and
the
the
sense.
similarities because it's the same with Shikov. We have that sound. It's a Jewish. It's a and I probably shouldn't say this, but it's true. With an African American sound, it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's an amazing sound. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yes.
I've got a girl right now who sounds like Leontine. I mean, and Leontine
Mm.
for me was one of the greatest
Yeah.
sopranos of all time.
Big,
Of all,
rich sounds. Yes.
just but could go to a pianissimo and do
Mm.
just. I mean, that for me was most one of the most exciting voices. But there is a Jewish sound. There is,
Yes.
and it's sort of cry thing that we have that's built in.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
agree with that. So I think Tucker and I have had that. Uh, and Chikov, of course, had that. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as it's still, he's not singing anymore, but he certainly has that sound.
You
We
did the career right, my friend, and you have a lot to be proud
knock
of
on
with
wood, and so did you, Daniel. I'm
yes.
so glad you're teaching, and I'm so. Let's stay in touch, please, please.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Mr. Allan Glassman. What a great career, what a great voice. Thank you so much for being
Thank
on
you,
the
Dan.
show with me today.
My honor, my honor.
And my
Okay.
friends, for those of you who want to know about my life's journey, like we were talking with Alan, you can go to my website, danielhendrick.com, and read my story or get my book there. It's called Know You Know. And it's my story how early in my career with Giuseppe Di Stefano, I lost my voice and took me 8 years to get it back and then made my debut there in Mephistopheles in New York City Opera. So go check it out at danielhendrick.com. And Alan, thank you again for being on the
Thank
show.
you, Dan.
Folks, thanks for listening and being with us today. God bless. See you soon.